Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The fist connected with Adrian Cross's jaw at 6:54 a.m., 1 minute before the morning bell. He rolled with the punch, muscle memory older than thought, and came up with the wrench already in his hand. The raider's eyes widened. Nobody moved that fast on Tormodon. Nobody except. Adrian dropped the wrench, let his shoulders slump, took the next hit square in the gut, and doubled over like any normal mechanic would. "Wrong shift tag, Rustbrain," the raider spat, snatching Adrian's work permit. "Mining Guild owns odd days now." Adrian stayed down, counting breaths. 3 years of this. 3 years of being small, being nobody, being exactly what everyone expected. Ed the mechanic who fixed the drill rigs and drank alone at Rusty Mike's. The morning bell thundered across the colony. 7 strikes that shook the prefab walls and set every loose bolt rattling. First shift. The raider kicked dust in Adrian's face and stalked off toward Shaft 7. Adrian waited until the footsteps faded before standing. His jaw throbbed, but the pain felt clean, honest. Not like the other kind that woke him every morning at 4 a.m., that drove him through 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 squats, 1,000 reasons to exhaust himself into dreamless sleep. He was halfway through washing the blood from his mouth when the knock came. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 1 long scrape of small knuckles against rusted metal. "Rusty morning, Uncle Ed." Adrian's hand stopped mid-reach for the door handle. Every single morning. For 3 years, that little voice had chirped the local greeting like some broken alarm clock he couldn't shut off. "Kid," for the 1,000th time, he yanked open the door. "I'm not your uncle, and I'm definitely not your—" The words died in his throat. Lumi stood on his doorstep in her faded yellow dress, the one with the little earth daisies her mother had sewn on the hem, but today she'd drawn all over her purple arms with what looked like engine grease. Crude stars and swirls and something that might have been a spaceship if spaceships looked like potatoes with sticks. "Look!" She thrust her arms up at him. "I'm decorated. Like you." Adrian's stomach clenched. "What?" "Mama said you have decorations. Lots of them. From being brave." She spun in a circle, making the dress flare out. "So I made my own. Now we match." "Your mother doesn't know what she's—" Adrian caught himself. The kid was 8, maybe. Zephyrians aged differently, and with that silver hair catching Tormodon's weak morning sun, she could have been anywhere from 6 to 10. "Go home, Lumi." "But I brought you something." She dug in her pocket and produced a perfectly round stone, smooth and gray and utterly worthless. "It's for your collection." "I don't have a—" "You have 47 rocks under your bed." She grinned, showing the gap where she'd lost a tooth last week. "I counted when you were fixing Mrs. Baker's converter." "You broke into my—" The door was open. It was locked. Locks are just puzzles, and puzzles are just— She screwed up her face, trying to remember. Obstacles waiting to be resolved. That's what Mama says. Adrian rubbed his eyes. The kid's mother had a lot to answer for, filling the girl's head with fantasies about absent fathers, teaching her to pick locks, and worst of all, sending her here every morning to knock on his door like he was something more than the burnt-out husk who'd crawled to this mining colony to disappear. "Lumi! Oh, watch this." She pressed her hand against his door, and for a second, just a second, her purple fingers seemed to shimmer, to become less solid like smoke given form. Then she yelped and jerked back, shaking her hand. "Ow, ow, ow!" "What did you—" "I almost did it. I almost went through." She sucked on her fingers. Mama can do it for like 2 whole seconds, but it makes her really tired, and then she has to nap, and she snores like— She made a sound like a broken air recycler. Adrian found himself almost smiling. Almost. He killed it before it could reach his face. "Your mother's Zephyrian trick won't work on you, kid. You're half human." Lumi's silver eyes went wide. How did you know that? Because he'd seen enough mixed species kids in the war to recognize the signs. Because her purple skin was a shade too pink, her fingers too short, her whole body caught between two different blueprints that didn't quite align. But he couldn't say any of that. Lucky guess. Now go home before... Lumi Tarson! The voice cracked like a whip across the morning air. Adrian's body tensed before his mind caught up. Military tone, used to being obeyed, female, furious. A woman rounded the corner at speed, and Adrian's breath caught. Zephyrian, definitely, with that deep purple skin and silver hair whipping behind her like a banner. But it was the way she moved that made his fingers itch for a weapon, all controlled violence barely leashed, like a plasma coil about to overload. She skidded to a stop in front of them, and Adrian saw her eyes were the same silver as Lumi's, but harder, like polished steel. "Mama!" Lumi bounced. "I found him! I found Papa!" The woman's gaze snapped to Adrian, and something flickered across her face. Recognition? Disappointment? She looked him up and down, taking in the mechanic's coveralls, the 3-day stubble, the carefully cultivated slouch. "This isn't him, baby." Her voice came out gentler, but her eyes never left Adrian's face. "This is just Mr. Ed. He fixes things." "But you said..." "I was wrong." She grabbed Lumi's grease-covered hand. "We've talked about this. You can't just declare random men your father. He's not random. He has 47 rocks. That doesn't..." The woman stopped, pinched the bridge of her nose. "I'm sorry about this. She's persistent." 3 years of persistent, Adrian said flatly. Something shifted in her expression. 3 years? Every morning, 7 a.m. like clockwork. They stared at each other while Lumi hummed and drew invisible patterns in the air between them. "Mama," Lumi stage whispered, "his face is doing that thing your face does when you're thinking about the war." The woman's expression shuttered closed. "We're leaving. Now." She pulled Lumi back, but the girl dug her heels in. "But Mama..." "Now, Lumi." "Wait." Adrian surprised himself by speaking. "The Zephyrian fleet. They're looking for someone." The woman went very still. How would a mechanic know about fleet movements? Bar talk. Rusty mics. Miners say Commander Crane himself is leading the search. Her knuckles went white around Lumi's hand. "Crane. You know him?" "Everyone knows him. War hero. Lost his family in the Terminus bombing." She pulled Lumi closer. "They say he's dedicated." Adrian heard what she didn't say. Fanatical, obsessed, dangerous. "Mama, you're squishing my fingers." "Sorry, baby." She loosened her grip but didn't let go. "Thank you for the bar gossip, Mr. Ed. We should go." She turned to leave, then stopped, looked back at him with those steel-silver eyes. "That scar on your jaw, the one you're touching right now, plasma blade?" Adrian dropped his hand. "Mining accident." "Right." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mining accident that left a Dracorian combat pattern. Interesting drill rig you must have been fixing." Before Adrian could respond, she was gone, pulling Lumi around the corner. The girl's voice drifted back. "But Mama, I didn't give him his rock." Adrian stood in his doorway for a long moment, watching the dust settle in their wake. Then he went inside, locked the door, for all the good it did, and pulled out the box from under his bed. 47 rocks, each one left on his doorstep over the past 3 years, each one perfectly round, perfectly smooth, perfectly worthless. He added the new one Lumi had dropped, number 48, and tried not to think about steel-silver eyes that saw too much. At 11 a.m., the work bell rang across the colony, calling the second shift. Adrian was deep in the guts of a mining rig, rewiring a control panel that some idiot had tried to improve with a plasma torch when he heard the whispers. Saw them landing this morning. Full battalion, maybe more. Looking for someone special has to be... Adrian kept his head down, his hand steady. But when Mike Garrett mentioned seeing purple blood on the walkway near Shaft 7, his fingers slipped. The wire sparked. The rig's alarm shrieked. By the time he got it shut off, everyone was staring. "You all right there, Ed?" Garrett asked. "Looking a little rusty." Adrian forced his shoulders to relax. "Rusty morning to you too, Mike." The miners laughed. Ed never got the greeting right, never said it at the right time. It was part of his charm, they said, part of what made him harmless. 3 years he'd been harmless. 3 years of small movements, small thoughts, small dreams about fixing things that stayed fixed. 3 years of pretending the war hadn't carved him hollow and filled the space with other people's expectations. 9 years since he'd stood on that podium, the weight of 3 systems' gratitude crushing his chest. President Martinez had called him the Steel Phoenix, the soldier who rose from every defeat, who turned death into victory. The crowd had roared. Confetti had fallen like snow. Adrian had stood there, metals cutting into his chest, and felt nothing. Nothing but the overwhelming urge to run, to hide, to find somewhere where nobody knew what the Steel Phoenix had done to earn those medals, what he'd become to save everyone else. That night, he'd left everything, the uniform, the medals, the name. Took a transport to the edge of nowhere and became Ed the mechanic. Ed who fixed things. Ed who drank alone. Ed who definitely wasn't anyone's father, no matter what purple little girls claimed every morning. The memory shattered when the emergency siren wailed across the colony. Not the work bell, not the shift change. The 3 long, 3 short pattern that meant everyone into the shelters meant raiders or pirates or worse. Adrian was already moving, muscle memory overriding 3 years of careful slowness. He caught himself, forced his run into a stumble, let other miners pass him as they fled toward the emergency bunkers. But his eyes tracked differently than theirs, counted the shadows wrong, saw the patterns in the panic. This wasn't a raid, this was a hunt. The Zephyrian soldiers moved through the colony like water through a sieve, smooth, inevitable, and thoroughly checking every gap. Adrian counted 12, no, 15, their purple skin almost black in their military biosuits. They weren't shooting, weren't threatening, just searching with the kind of methodical precision that made his teeth ache. He slipped into the crowd flowing toward Bunker 3, keeping his head down, his movements deliberately clumsy. Around him, miners cursed and shoved, their fear sharp as ozone. "It's that purple bitch they're after," someone hissed. "The one with the kid." Adrian's step faltered. "Saw her running toward the residential quarter," another voice added, "carrying the little one." His hands made fists before he could stop them. Not his problem, not his fight. He was Ed the mechanic, and Ed the mechanic didn't have the kind of skills that could take on 15 Zephyrian soldiers. Ed the mechanic would huddle in the bunker with everyone else and wait for it to be over. The Steel Phoenix, though. Adrian killed the thought and kept walking. 3 more steps to the bunker entrance. 2, 1. A child's scream split the air. His body turned before his mind could stop it, running now, not toward safety but away from it, toward the residential quarter where prefab houses leaned against each other like drunks at closing time. His careful 3-year disguise shredded with every step as he moved faster than any mechanic should, taking corners with military precision, his body remembering what his mind wanted to forget. The scream came again, closer. Adrian burst around the corner and stopped. Lumi stood in the middle of the street, her yellow dress torn, purple blood running from a cut on her forehead. 3 Zephyrian soldiers surrounded her, but they weren't trying to grab her. They were hurting her, keeping her contained while one of them spoke into a comm unit. "Target acquired. The hybrid child. No sign of the mother." Hybrid. The word hit Adrian like a physical blow. Zephyrians could breed with exactly 3 species in the known galaxy. Humans were one of them, but it required something specific. blood transfer at the moment of conception, a genetic compatibility so rare it was practically myth. "Papa!" Lumi's eyes locked on his, huge and terrified. "Papa, help!" The soldiers turned, weapons rising, and Adrian saw their faces process what they were seeing. A human mechanic, coveralls stained with grease, no threat at all. "Move along, human," one of them said in accented coalition standard. "This is Zephyrian business." Adrian took a step forward, then another. "Papa, please." Lumi tried to run to him, but one of the soldiers caught her arm, lifted her off the ground. She cried out, kicking uselessly at his armored chest. "I said, move along." The soldier's weapon centered on Adrian's chest. "This doesn't concern you." 3 years of careful construction, 3 years of being nobody, 3 years of letting fists and insults and indignities slide off him like rain. All of it balanced against one purple little girl who'd left 48 rocks on his doorstep. "Put her down," Adrian heard himself say. The soldiers laughed. "Or what, grease monkey? You'll fix us to death?" Adrian felt the old coldness settle into his bones, the battle calm that had carried him through 100 missions, 1,000 impossible moments. His stance shifted, subtle but significant. Weight forward, hands loose, reading the angles and distances like sheet music. "Last chance," he said, and his voice came out different, darker, the voice that had once commanded armies. The lead soldier's eyes narrowed. "Who?" Adrian moved. The wrench from his belt took the first soldier in the temple, a perfect throw that dropped him before his finger could find the trigger. Adrian was already rolling, using the fallen body as cover, coming up with the soldier's weapon in his hands. 2 shots, center mass, clean and quick. The third soldier managed to fire, but Adrian had already calculated the angle, was already moving, letting the plasma bolt sear past his shoulder as he closed the distance. Hand-to-hand was ugly, brutal. The Zephyrian was stronger, but Adrian knew exactly where their biosuits were weakest, where the joints gaped, where a human elbow could find purple flesh and make it hurt. They went down in a tangle, but Adrian came up first, the soldier's backup pistol already in his hand. "Papa?" Lumi stood frozen, eyes wide, still held by the soldier Adrian had dropped first. Not dead, just unconscious. Adrian met her gaze, saw the fear there shift into something else. Recognition, maybe, or just a child seeing her world reshape itself around a new truth. The comm unit crackled. "Squad 7, report, Squad 7. Adrian shot the comm unit. Then he shot the unconscious soldier's comm too, and the third one for good measure. It would buy them minutes, maybe less. "We need to go," he said, scooping Lumi into his arms. She weighed nothing, bird bones and butterfly wings. "You fought them," she whispered against his shoulder. "You fought them like someone who's going to get us both killed if we don't move. Where's your mother?" "She said to run, said to find you, said you'd," her voice hitched, "said you'd protect me even if you didn't want to." Adrian ran. Lumi clutched against his chest, her arms around his neck. Behind them, shouts rose as more soldiers found their downed squad. Adrian's mind calculated routes, probabilities, the exact amount of time before the colony's entry points were locked down. They needed to get off-world. They needed transport. They needed... "Down here!" Adrian skidded to a stop. Rooney stood at the mouth of an alley, purple blood running from a gash in her side, a military-grade plasma rifle in her hands like she knew exactly how to use it. Their eyes met over Lumi's head. "So," she said, "not just a mechanic. Not just a mother." "Mama!" Lumi reached for her, but Rooney stepped back, keeping the rifle up, covering the street behind them. "No time. They're tracking her." She tossed something at Adrian, a small device, blinking red. Bioscanner. Crane knows exactly what she is. "What is she?" Rooney's smile was sharp as broken glass. "Yours." The word hit him like a physical blow. Impossible. He'd never... 9 years ago, Rooney said, already moving, leading them through the alley. Shaft 7, the cave-in. The memory surfaced like something dredged from deep water. The rescue. The blood transfusion in the dark, desperate to save a stranger's life. Her eyes opening for just a moment, unfocused, before she passed out again. Zephyrian biology, Rooney continued, not slowing. Blood transfer with a compatible partner during ovulation. 1 in a million chance. But you, she glanced back. Your blood was different, enhanced. All those pretty modifications the Coalition gave their best soldier. Adrian's legs nearly gave out. The Steel Phoenix augmented blood, designed to carry more oxygen, heal faster, survive longer. He'd given it to a dying Zephyrian woman and accidentally created a miracle, Rooney said, or a weapon, depending on who's asking. They burst out onto the loading docks. Transport ships sat in rows, most of them locked down, but Rooney led them to a beaten-up cargo hauler that looked like it was held together with prayer and industrial tape. Get in. She hit the hatch release. I've got the launch codes. You planned this. I've been planning this for 3 years. She boosted Lumi into the ship, then turned to face him. Ever since I figured out who you really were, the Steel Phoenix, hiding as a mechanic, the perfect protector for our daughter. You knew? Plasma blade scar, Dracorian combat stance. The way you count exits every time you enter a room. She smiled, but it was sad. Also, you do 3,000 exercises every morning. The walls are thin. Before Adrian could respond, plasma fire erupted behind them, soldiers closing fast. Go! Rooney shoved him toward the ship, then spun, rifle rising. Get in the damn ship! Mama! Lumi tried to climb back out, but Adrian caught her, held her. Trust me, Rooney said, not looking back. Trust me to buy you time. Trust me that she's worth it. Trust me that you're the father she needs, even if you never meant to be. She fired, precise 3-round bursts that drove the soldiers to cover. Adrian saw the math, the inevitable conclusion. She couldn't hold them for long. Rooney. Her name is Lumi Tarson Cross. She glanced back one last time, silver eyes bright with tears. I added your name 3 years ago, just in case. More soldiers appeared. Too many. Adrian, she said, and hearing his real name in her voice was like a key turning in a lock. Don't let him make her into a weapon. Promise me. I promise. She smiled. Then she charged the soldiers, firing, drawing them away from the ship. Adrian hit the hatch control, engines already spinning up, Lumi screaming for her mother. The last thing he saw before the hatch closed was Rooney going down under plasma fire, still shooting, still fighting, still buying them seconds they needed. The ship lurched upward, barely controlled, Adrian's hands fighting with controls he only half remembered. Lumi sobbed against his chest, her small fists beating at him. We have to go back. We have to save her. We can't. You saved me. You fought them. You can... I can't. The words came out broken. I'm sorry, baby. I can't. She collapsed against him, crying so hard her whole body shook. Adrian held her with one arm while flying with the other, feeling the weight of a promise made to a dying woman, the weight of sudden fatherhood, the weight of a past that had finally caught up with him. Behind them, Tormodin shrank to a dusty marble. Ahead, space opened like a mouth, dark and full of teeth. The proximity alarm screamed. 3 Zephyrian interceptors rising from the planet's surface. Adrian looked down at the purple child in his arms, this impossible daughter he'd never known he had, and made a choice. Not as Ed the mechanic, not even as the Steel Phoenix, as a father. Hold on, Lumi, he said, reaching for the combat controls he'd sworn never to touch again. This is going to get bumpy. She looked up at him with those silver eyes, so much like her mother's. "Rusty morning, Papa," she whispered. Despite everything, Adrian felt his mouth curve into something almost like a smile. "Rusty morning, little one," he said, and dove the ship toward the asteroid belt, where the real running would begin. The morning bell of Tormodon would never wake him again. But as Lumi's arms tightened around his neck, Adrian Cross realized he'd finally found something worth waking up for. Even if it had taken 3 years and 48 worthless rocks to understand it, even if it had cost everything, even if the greatest war hero in 3 systems had no idea how to be what this little girl needed, a father who wouldn't leave, wouldn't die, wouldn't let her down. But he'd try. God help him, he'd try. The plasma bolt missed Lumi's head by 3 inches, and Adrian's heart stopped for the second time in 10 minutes. Down! He yanked her behind the cargo crate as another bolt seared through the space where she'd been standing. The Zephyrian interceptors had found them faster than he'd calculated, barely 2 hours into their escape, still inside Tormodon's outer asteroid field. The stolen hauler groaned around them, shields failing, hull integrity at 30% and dropping. Adrian's hands flew over the controls, coaxing every last drop of speed from engines that were never meant for combat maneuvers. "Papa, I can help!" Lumi reached for the console, but he caught her wrist. "No, strap in." "But I can..." "Strap in." She scrambled into the co-pilot seat, fumbling with the harness. Another hit rocked the ship, and sparks showered from the overhead panels. Adrian tasted copper, blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. 3 interceptors, military grade. If he'd been in a coalition fighter, if he'd had his old squad, if he'd been anyone but a broken soldier with a stolen hauler and a daughter he'd known for less than a day. Stop, think, adapt. The asteroid field, dense enough to hide, dangerous enough that the interceptors would have to slow down. Adrian killed the main engines using only thrusters, letting the ship's momentum carry them toward a cluster of spinning rocks the size of buildings. "Why are we slowing down?" Lumi's voice came out small, scared. "Sometimes the best way to win is not to fight." The first asteroid loomed in the viewport. Adrian fired the starboard thruster, spinning them around its mass, using its gravity to slingshot deeper into the field. The interceptors followed, but cautiously now, their formation spreading. A mistake. Adrian fired everything. Cargo pods, waste containers, even the emergency beacon, creating a cloud of debris that scattered off the asteroids like shrapnel. One interceptor's shields flared and died. It tried to pull up, but momentum carried it straight into a spinning rock. 2 left. "Papa, behind us!" Adrian was already moving, rolling the ship as plasma fire streaked past. The hauler's artificial gravity failed, and suddenly they were floating, held only by their harnesses. Lumi shrieked, half fear, half something that sounded almost like delight. "This is flying," she shouted over the alarms. "This is crashing with style." She laughed, actually laughed as death chased them through a field of ancient stones. Her mother's daughter finding joy in the impossible moment. The thought of Rooney hit him like a physical blow. Those final seconds, her silver eyes bright with tears and determination, buying them time with her life. He should have been faster, should have seen the ambush coming, should have... The second interceptor exploded. Adrian blinked, hands freezing on the controls. He hadn't fired, hadn't even... Well. A familiar voice crackled through the comm. Ed the mechanic, flying like a coalition ace. Who would have thought? Vasquez. The old smuggler's ship dropped out of the asteroid's shadow, weapons still hot from the kill. How? You think you're the only one who listens to bar gossip? Heard the Zephyrians were hunting. Figured my old friend Ed might need a ride. A pause. Though I wasn't expecting the fancy flying. Or the kid. The last interceptor peeled off, retreating toward Tormodon. Adrian let it go. They'd report back to Crane, but that couldn't be helped. "Follow me," Vasquez said. "I know a place." 3 hours later, they docked at a station that didn't officially exist, a smuggler's haven built into a hollowed-out asteroid, all rust and recycled air and people who didn't ask questions. Adrian carried Lumi through the docking tube. She'd fallen asleep after the adrenaline crashed, her small body limp as a rag doll, purple fingers still clutched in his shirt. She weighed nothing, but the responsibility of her pressed down like gravity from a gas giant. Vasquez led them to a room that was more storage closet than quarters. One narrow bunk, a broken refresher, walls that leaked condensation. But it had a door that locked and no windows for anyone to peer through. "Best I can do," Vasquez said, scratching his gray stubbled chin. "Station master owes me, but not enough for luxury." "It's perfect." Adrian laid Lumi on the bunk, pulled the thin blanket up to her chin. In sleep, she looked even younger, the purple of her skin darker in the bad lighting, silver hair spread like spilled mercury. "So," Vasquez leaned against the doorframe, "the Steel Phoenix has a daughter." Adrian's hand moved to the weapon he wasn't carrying. "How? Please, I've been running contraband for 30 years. You think I can't spot a soldier? The way you count exits, check corners, hold yourself like you're waiting for an attack?" He snorted. Ed the mechanic was a good act, but not that good. "Are you going to sell you out? For what? The Zephyrians pay in promises, the Coalition thinks you're dead, and the kid." He looked at Lumi. "What is she anyway? Half-breed?" "My daughter." "That's not what I asked." Adrian met his eyes. "That's all that matters." Vasquez studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fair enough, but Crane's not going to stop. Lost his whole family in the Terminus bombing, they say. Man like that, with nothing left to lose and a cause to die for, he'll burn the whole sector to find you." After Vasquez left, Adrian sat on the floor beside the bunk, back against the cold metal wall. The station's recyclers hummed, a rhythm like breathing. Somewhere in the walls, pipes leaked. Water, or something worse, dripping with metronomic persistence. Lumi whimpered in her sleep. "Mama." The word gutted him. He touched her forehead. No fever, just dreams. Bad ones, from the way her fingers clenched and unclenched. She'd watched her mother die, watched her father, and wasn't that a joke, him being anyone's father, kill 3 soldiers with the kind of efficiency that spoke of long practice. What kind of life was this for a child? Running, hiding, violence trailing them like a shadow? Maybe Crane's right, a traitorous voice whispered. Maybe she would be better off. "Papa?" Lumi's eyes opened, silver in the dark. "I'm here." She sat up, the blanket pooling around her waist. "I wasn't scared." "I know. I mean, maybe a little scared. When the ship was spinning and the gravity broke and I thought I was going to throw up." She paused. "Did I throw up?" "No." "Good. Heroes don't throw up." "I'm not a hero, Lumi." She tilted her head, studying him with that unnerving directness children had. "Mama said you were. Said you saved millions of people. Said they gave you medals." "Medals don't make heroes." "What does?" Adrian didn't have an answer for that. Heroes were what other people needed you to be, until the weight of their need crushed you flat. "Papa?" Her voice went smaller. Could you have saved Mama?" The question he'd been asking himself every second since Tormodon. He could lie, make it easier for her, for both of them. But Rooney had died for truth. "No," he said. "There were too many. If I'd tried, we'd all be dead." She nodded, processing this with the brutal pragmatism of a child who'd grown up on a mining colony. She knew that. Yes, that's why she stayed. Yes. Lumi was quiet for a moment. Then she scooted to the edge of the bunk and wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing her face into his shoulder. She smelled like engine oil and that particular sweetness purple-skinned species had like caramel and ozone. "I'm glad you picked me," she whispered. Adrian's throat closed. He held her carefully, afraid she might break, more afraid she might let go. 2 days passed in the strange rhythm of hiding. Adrian ventured out only for food and information, leaving Lumi with puzzle games on a datapad Vasquez had found. She solved them faster than the pad could generate new ones. "My brain's different," she explained, matter of fact. "Mama said it's 'cause of the hybrid thing. I can see patterns real good." She demonstrated by walking through the cabin wall. One moment she was solid, the next she was shimmer and smoke, stepping through metal like it was morning mist. She emerged on the other side, grinning. "See? The molecules have patterns, spaces between. She wiggled her fingers, slip through." "How long can you hold it?" She shrugged. "Hours, maybe." Mama could only do seconds. It made her nose bleed. Adrian filed that away. Crane would know about this ability, would have plans to counter it. Energy nets maybe, or phase disruptors. The kind of tech that... "You're doing the thinking face again." "I don't have a thinking face." "You do. Your eyebrows get all scrunchy and you forget to blink." She demonstrated, furrowing her brow in an exaggerated scowl. "Like you're mad at your brain." Before he could respond, his comm buzzed. "Vasquez. Problem. Zephyrian battlecruiser just entered the system. The kind of ship that carries a commander who's very interested in finding someone." Adrian was already moving, grabbing their few possessions. "How long?" 2 hours. Maybe less. They're scanning everything, and I mean everything. Even the rats aren't safe." "Can you get us out?" "Already prepping. Bay 7, 10 minutes. And Ed? Bring credits. Lots of them." Adrian turned to find Lumi already dressed, her face set in a determination that looked wrong on an 8-year-old. "I can fight," she said. "No. I can help." "You can help by staying close and doing exactly what I say." Her lower lip trembled, but she nodded. They made it 3 steps out the door before the lights cut out. Emergency strips glowed red along the floor, and the station's alarm began its distinctive wail. Not the raid siren, but the boarding alert. They were already here. Adrian pulled Lumi into an alcove as footsteps thundered past. Zephyrian soldiers, moving in squad formation, searching systematically. "Can you go through the floor?" he whispered. She pressed her hand against the deck plating, concentrated. Her fingers shimmered but stayed solid. "It's too thick. I need to see where I'm going, or I get stuck." Stuck. Inside metal. Adrian pushed down the spike of terror that image brought. More footsteps. Closer. He lifted Lumi, pressed her into the corner where overhead pipes created a shadow. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." "Where are you?" "Creating a distraction." "Looking for someone?" Adrian asked in Coalition Standard, adding just enough drunk slur to his voice. "Because the bathroom's that way." The lead soldier stepped forward, scanner in hand. Human. Male. Age approximately... The device beeped. Biometric match. 93% probability. Adrian's blood went cold. They had his biometrics. From where? When? The soldier's weapon centered on his chest. "Adrian Cross. By order of Commander Crane, you will come with us." "Wrong guy." Adrian swayed slightly. "Name's Ed. Ask anyone." "The child. Where is she?" "What child?" The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. "The hybrid. Your daughter." Adrian let his shoulders slump. "Dead." Lies. A new voice, cultured and cold. Commander Crane stepped through the squad, and Adrian understood why Rooney had run for 3 years. The man was tall for a Zephyrian, purple skin so dark it looked black, silver hair cut military short. But it was his eyes that made Adrian's instinct scream, silver like Lumi's, like Rooney's, but empty, like someone had scooped out everything human and left only purpose. "The child lives," Crane said. "I can smell her fear, sweet, like her mother's was. He smiled, and it was worse than a snarl. "Did Rooney tell you why I want the child? Something about weapons, soldiers, salvation." Crane stepped closer. "My daughter was 6 when the Terminus station exploded, 6 years old, playing with her dolls while her mother took her to visit me. The Coalition claimed it was an accident, a reactor failure." His voice stayed level, conversational. "Have you ever seen what vacuum does to a child's body, Phoenix?" Adrian said nothing. "I have. In my dreams. Every night." Crane pulled out a holopad, showed an image. A small girl with purple skin and silver eyes, smiling gap-toothed at the camera. Luna, that was her name. She wanted to be a pilot. The resemblance to Lumi was unsettling, cousins separated by death. "Your daughter is a miracle," Crane continued. "The first successful human-Zephyrian hybrid, able to phase indefinitely, strong as 3 soldiers, immune to half the weapons in the galaxy. Imagine an army of her. Imagine never losing another child to the Coalition's accidents. She's 8 years old. She's the future. And if I have to cut her apart to understand how she works, I will. Better one child sacrifice than 1,000,000 deaths." Adrian heard Lumi's sharp intake of breath from her hiding spot. Crane heard it too. His head snapped toward the alcove. "There you are, little one." Everything happened at once. Lumi burst from hiding, trying to run. A soldier grabbed her. She went phase, slipping through his hands, but Crane was ready. He threw something, a disc that expanded into an energy net, crackling with phase disruptor frequencies. Lumi screamed as it wrapped around her, forcing her solid burning where it touched. Adrian moved. Not like Ed the mechanic, like the Steel Phoenix. The first soldier went down before he could react, Adrian's elbow crushing his windpipe. The second managed to fire, but Adrian was already inside his guard, redirecting the weapon into the third soldier. He spun, grabbed a fallen rifle, put 3 shots center mass into the fourth before the man could blink. Crane watched, almost amused. There he is, the legend himself. Adrian aimed at Crane's head. "Let her go." "Or what? You'll kill me? My men have orders. If I don't report in, they glass this entire station." "You're bluffing." "I lost everything that matters. Do you really think I care about collateral damage?" The net sparked and Lumi whimpered. Her skin was starting to blister where the energy touched. "Papa." "It's okay, baby. It's going to be okay." Crane laughed. "Is it? You can't save her, Phoenix. Just like you couldn't save the Eridani colony, or the Mars 7, or any of the 1,000 people who died believing in you." The words hit like physical blows, all his failures laid bare. "But I'm offering you a chance," Crane continued. "Give her to me willingly. I'll make it quick, painless. She won't suffer, and her sacrifice will save billions." "Papa, don't listen to him." Lumi struggled against the net. "I'm not afraid." But she was. Adrian could see it in her silver eyes, the same fear he'd seen in 1,000 faces across a dozen battlefields. The fear of a child who'd already lost one parent and was about to lose another. "You want to know what makes a hero?" Adrian said, not to Crane but to Lumi. "It's not the medals or the victories. It's knowing when to stop being one." He dropped the rifle. Crane smiled. Finally, wisdom. Adrian knelt beside Lumi, hands gentle on the net despite the energy burning his palms. "Remember what you said about patterns?" Her eyes widened slightly. "The spaces between? Every pattern has a flaw. Every net has a hole." He met her gaze. "Even this one." Understanding flickered across her face. She closed her eyes, concentrated. For a moment, nothing. Then her pinky finger shimmered, slipped through one of the net's energy links. Then another finger. Another. "Impossible," Crane breathed. "Papa taught me," Lumi said. And her whole hand went phase, reaching through the net toward Adrian. Heroes don't give up. Adrian grabbed her hand just as Vasquez's voice boomed through the station speakers. "Attention, Zephyrian assholes! You've got 30 seconds before this entire section decompresses. 29, 28. Chaos. Soldiers scrambling for emergency gear. Crane shouting orders. And in the confusion, Adrian pulled Lumi through the net, her body fighting the phase disruptor but winning, molecule by molecule. She collapsed against him, skin burned and blistered but alive. So alive. "Can you run?" She nodded. They ran. Behind them, Crane's roar echoed through the station. Not pain. Rage. The sound of a man who just watched his salvation slip through his fingers like smoke, like a little girl who'd learned to find the spaces between. The rifle butt cracked against Adrian's skull with the wet sound of breaking promises. He went down hard, knees hitting the deck plating as Crane's soldiers swarmed them. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Lumi scream. Not fear this time, but rage, the sound of a child pushed past her breaking point. "Papa, get up! Please get up!" Adrian tried. His arms wouldn't cooperate, neurons firing wrong, the world tilting like a ship with failed stabilizers. Blood ran warm down his neck as rough hands seized his arms, dragged him toward the emergency bulkhead. 10 seconds to decompression. Vasquez's voice continued its countdown. 9, 8. Crane stood over him, calm in the chaos. "Override that countdown, or everyone dies." 7, 6. Adrian spat blood. "Not my countdown to stop." 5, 4. Crane's face twisted. He grabbed Lumi by the hair, silver strands wrapped in his fist. "Override it now." 3. Adrian's body moved on instinct, desperate, crawling toward the escape pod hatch 6 feet away. 6 feet that felt like miles. His vision doubled, tripled, but he kept moving. 2. His hand found the release. The hatch hissed open. 1. Adrian threw himself inside as the bulkhead behind them exploded outward. The decompression hit like the fist of God, sucking everything not bolted down into the vacuum. He slammed the pod's emergency seal, lungs burning, ears screaming from the pressure change. Through the porthole, he saw them, Crane's magnetic boots keeping him anchored, Lumi unconscious in his arms, her small body limp as he carried her toward his shuttle. Their eyes met through the glass. Crane smiled and mouthed a single word, "Mine." Adrian pounded on the porthole until his fists bled, watching helplessly as they disappeared into the shuttle's belly. The pod's auto-launch engaged, firing him into space like a bullet from a gun, spinning away from the station, from his daughter, from his second chance at meaning something. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him was Crane's battlecruiser jumping to hyperspace, taking Lumi with it. He woke to Vasquez's face hovering like a worried moon. "Easy, Phoenix. Easy." Adrian tried to sit up. The world spun violently, and he vomited onto the medical bay floor. Vasquez jumped back, cursing in 3 languages. "How long?" Adrian's voice came out raw. 2 days. You had a skull fracture, internal bleeding. Doc wanted to put you in stasis, but I figured you'd want to be conscious for the revenge planning. Where did they go? That's the trillion-credit question. Vasquez pulled up a holo display. Crane's ship jumped to hyperspace, but my contacts say they didn't head for Zephyrian space. They went dark, completely off-grid. Adrian forced himself upright, ignoring the way his vision swam. He has a base, somewhere private, somewhere he can work without oversight. Work on what? Cloning. He wants to replicate Lumi, create an army. Adrian's hands clenched. He's going to take her apart to figure out how she works. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then, "I might know someone. Ex-Zephyrian military owes me from way back. But Adrian, finding them is one thing. Getting her back." is my problem. Adrian stood, swaying but staying upright through sheer will. Just find them. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of following whispers and rumors through the dark corners of known space. 3 weeks of Adrian pushing his broken body through its paces, preparing for a fight he might not survive. The information came from a drunk Zephyrian deserter in a bar that didn't have a name. Base 07, a decommissioned research station in a dying system. Completely off the books. The kind of place where screams didn't carry and ethics went to die. "You can't go alone," Vasquez said as Adrian prepped his gear. "It's suicide. It's fatherhood." Same thing, apparently. Vasquez sighed. "At least take this." He handed Adrian a device the size of a cigarette pack. Thermite charge, military grade, enough to turn a whole station into stellar dust. Adrian pocketed it. "If I don't make it out, you will." Vasquez gripped his shoulder. "Because that kid needs her papa, and because I already paid for the victory drinks." Adrian almost smiled. "Rusty morning, old friend." Vasquez blinked, surprised. "And peace with you, Phoenix." Base 07 hung in space like a tumor, all angles and exposed conduits, bleeding radiation from a dozen minor breaches. Adrian's stolen shuttle docked without challenge. Whoever was supposed to be watching was either dead or didn't care. He moved through empty corridors that stank of antiseptic and fear. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and somewhere deeper in the station, machines hummed with purpose. Adrian found the laboratory by following the screams. Not pain screams, frustration. Lumi's voice, high and angry. "I told you it won't work. I can't do it when I'm scared." Adrian peered through the observation window and his blood turned to ice. The lab was massive, filled with hundreds of growth pods, each containing a small floating form. Clones. Failed clones, from the look of them. Purple skin too dark or too light, limbs malformed, faces wrong in ways that made his stomach turn. In the center, Lumi stood in an energy cage, still wearing the same yellow dress from 3 weeks ago, now torn and dirty. Crane paced outside the cage, a data pad in his hand. "Try again," he ordered. "No." Lumi crossed her arms. "You're mean and you smell like old cheese. Your defiance is pointless. I've already extracted your DNA, mapped your genome. These," he gestured to the pods, "are your sisters, your legacy." "They're not my sisters, they're just sad copies." Lumi pressed against the cage bars, and for a moment her hand shimmered, almost phasing through before snapping back solid. "And they'll never work because you don't understand." "Enlighten me then, child." "It's not just genetics. Mama said so. It's about love. The blood transfer only works if there's compatibility, not just physical, emotional." She stuck out her tongue. "And nobody could ever love you." Crane backhanded the cage, making it spark. Lumi yelped, jumping back. "Love," he spat. "Love didn't save my daughter. Love didn't stop the bombs. Only power matters. Only strength." "That's why you're alone," Lumi said quietly. "That's why your daughter would be sad if she saw you now." Crane went very still. When he spoke, his voice was winter. "My daughter is dead. But her memory isn't, and you're making it ugly." Adrian chose that moment to enter, weapon raised. "Step away from her." Crane turned, no surprise on his face. "Phoenix, I wondered when you'd arrive, though I expected something more dramatic." "Let her go." "Or what? You'll kill me? Go ahead." Crane spread his arms. "But know that if my heart stops, so does hers. The cage is linked to my biosignature." Adrian's aim didn't waver. "You're lying." "Papa!" Lumi pressed against the bars. "He's not lying. There's a thing on his wrist like a heartbeat monitor, but backwards." Crane smiled. "Smart child. She gets that from her mother, I assume." Actually, Adrian said, she gets it from me. He shot Crane in the knee. The Zephyrian went down screaming, data pads skittering across the floor. Adrian was already moving, kicking the man's weapon away, pinning him with a knee to the chest. "The cage," he growled, "won't open unless..." Adrian pressed the gun to Crane's other knee. Unless I'm conscious to input the code." Crane laughed through the pain. "Kill me or knock me out, she dies. Leave me conscious, I'll never give you the code. Stalemate, Phoenix." Adrian looked at Lumi. She stood very still in the cage, silver eyes wide but trusting, waiting for her papa to fix this, like he fixed drill rigs and broken shuttles and her scraped knees that one time she'd tried to phase through a wall and only made it halfway. "You're right," Adrian said. "It is a stalemate. Unless..." He pulled out Vasquez's thermite charge, activated it. The device beeped, beginning its countdown. 60 seconds. "Unless I blow the whole station, your life's work, your clones, everything." Crane's eyes widened. "You wouldn't. She'd die too." "Maybe. Or maybe a father who's learned to read his daughter knows she can phase through that cage if she's not afraid, if she trusts me completely." 50 seconds. Adrian met Lumi's eyes. "Remember what I taught you about patterns?" She nodded. "This cage has a pattern. The energy cycles every 3 seconds. Peak, trough, peak. You feel it?" "Yes, Papa." 40 seconds. "When I say now, you go full phase. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Just trust me." "You'll die too," Crane gasped. "The thermite. There's no escape pods on this level." "I know." Adrian didn't look away from Lumi. "But she won't." 30 seconds. "Papa, no!" Lumi's hands pressed against the bars. "We're supposed to be a family." "We are. We always will be." Adrian watched the energy cycle. Peak, trough, almost now. Lumi went phase, her whole body shimmering into smoke and starlight. She pushed through the bars like they were morning mist, solidifying on the other side just as the energy peaked again. 20 seconds. Adrian grabbed her, running for the emergency shaft he'd marked on the way in. Behind them, Crane screamed, rage, desperation, the sound of a man watching his twisted dream collapse. 10 seconds. The shaft led to the last functioning escape pod. Adrian threw Lumi inside, his hands flying over the launch controls. 5 seconds. "Papa, get in." "No room. Pod's weight limit." "I don't care." 3 seconds. "I love you, sunshine." 2. He hit the launch. 1. The pod fired just as the thermite detonated. Adrian turned to face the wall of fire racing toward him, and for the first time in years felt peace. He'd chosen her, not duty, not the greater good, her. The blast wave hit and passed through him. Adrian blinked. He was smoke, starlight, molecules spread thin but somehow still himself. Through the vacuum where the wall had been, he saw Lumi's pod spinning away, but her face was pressed to the porthole, her hand extended, and she was screaming something he couldn't hear but could feel. "Papa!" She was holding him. Somehow, across impossible distance, she was holding his pattern together, pulling him like thread through the needle of space. His vision went white, then black, then solid. He crashed into the pod's floor, gasping, solid, impossibly alive. Lumi collapsed on top of him, her small arms wrapped around his neck so tight he could barely breathe. "I did it," she sobbed. "I pulled you through, like you pulled Mama's blood through you and like she pulled me through her, and we're all connected, Papa. The patterns, the spaces between. I found you in the spaces between." Adrian held her, both of them shaking, both of them crying, the pod tumbling through debris that had been Base 07, had been Crane's dream, had been everything except what mattered. "How?" he whispered. "Love," she said simply. "It makes the patterns stronger." Through the porthole, Adrian saw a piece of debris tumble past, part of a cloning pod, the half-formed shape inside already dissolving. Crane's legacy turned to stellar dust, but in his arms, Lumi lived, bright and strange and impossible and his. 1 year later, Nova Montana colony. Adrian woke at 6:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the bell. Old habits. But now the bell was just a small thing Lumi had hung on the porch, and instead of a mining shift, it signaled breakfast time. "Papa, rusty morning, time for exercises." She bounced into his room, purple skin bright with health, silver hair and pigtails that she'd done herself, badly. 8 years old. No, 9 now. They'd celebrated her birthday last week with a cake Adrian had made, burned, and rebuilt, less burned. "It's Sunday," he groaned. "You said every day. Every day means every day." She was right, of course. He rolled out of bed and they went through their routine. Not 3,000 repetitions anymore, just 100 each. Enough to stay strong, not enough to punish himself. As they exercised, Lumi chattered about school, about the boy who pulled her pigtails, about her teacher, Mrs. Baker, who'd moved here from Tormodon with her family after everything, about the garden she was growing out back. "The tomatoes are turning purple. Is that 'cause I touched them?" "Probably." "Cool." After exercises, breakfast. Adrian had learned to cook, badly but improving. Lumi helped by phase-shifting the smoke out of the kitchen when he burned things. "Papa," she said around a mouthful of eggs, "kids at school asked why I have a human dad." "What did you tell them?" "That family isn't about species or blood or any of that stuff. It's about choosing each other. Every day." Adrian's throat tightened. "Smart kid?" "I know. I get it from my dad." After breakfast, they walked to the hill behind their house. A simple stone marked Rooney's grave. They'd never recovered her body, but Lumi had insisted on having somewhere to talk to her. "Hi, Mama," Lumi said, placing fresh flowers. "Papa only burned breakfast twice this week. That's a record. And I learned to phase through water yesterday. It feels weird, all tingly." She chattered on, telling her mother about her week. Adrian stood back, letting her have this moment. When she finished, she kissed her fingers and pressed them to the stone. "Love you, Mama. Thanks for choosing Papa for me." As they walked back, Lumi slipped her hand into his. "Papa, are you happy?" Adrian looked down at her. This impossible child who'd knocked on his door every morning for 3 years, who'd called him Papa when he didn't deserve it, who'd saved him from the vacuum of space through sheer determination and love. "Yeah, sunshine, I'm happy." "Good, because we have a lot of work to do." "Work?" She grinned. "I want to open a place for kids like me. Mixed kids, special kids, kids who don't fit in. We can teach them that being different is okay." "That's a big dream." "You were a big hero. Now you're a big papa. Big is what we do." The evening bell rang. 11 o'clock, Lumi's bedtime. As Adrian tucked her in, she grabbed his hand. "Papa, tell me the story again?" "Which one?" "The one where the broken soldier became a papa." Adrian sat on the edge of her bed. "Once upon a time, there was a soldier who thought he'd lost everything worth fighting for." By the time he finished, she was asleep, purple fingers still wrapped around his. Adrian stayed there, watching her breathe, this miracle child who'd given him something he'd never thought he'd have again. Purpose, family, home. Outside, Nova Montana's 3 moons rose over the mountains, painting everything in silver light. Somewhere in the galaxy, other soldiers fought other wars. Other heroes saved other worlds. But here, in this small house on this quiet planet, Adrian Cross had found his greatest victory, being Lumi's papa. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.